And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the e-commerce work group on the John Lavinia Success Mastermind Network. I am Stuart Wild. It is Monday, September 21st, and I'm excited to be here with you guys to talk about e-commerce skills and topics and challenges as we all move forward on our collective e-commerce journeys. A couple things I always like to do is for sure I like to give a disclaimer. I'm not putting myself out here as an e-commerce guru or some kind of an expert on anything. I'm a student like you guys. I've been in this for less than a year. I've had some good successes and some wins and feel like I'm on a good trajectory and feel like I have a good grasp of a lot of things. But at the same time, I think that the real value is when we can all come together, mastermind this, brainstorm, help each other overcome hurdles and challenges, and get some questions answered collectively. So with that, let's say I like to do a little housekeeping. So if anybody has any wins or any challenges that they want to share, I want to open the floor. If anybody wants to kind of say, hey, something cool happened.
Something cool is happening for us. We've got our product almost ready to send to the factory to create, but I'm a little bit stumped. On the box that needs to be created is we have to put the ASIN, or I guess it's the ASIN. So can I create a draft listing without pictures and save it so it's not public yet? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, so there's a couple of things with that. One is that until you add images to your listing, it's not live. And then the other answer to that is until you have inventory, it is also not live. Although you might be able to see it if you look it up and things like that, it's there, but it's not going to rank.
Okay.
Okay. And then what was the other thing you were mentioning?
Well, that was the main thing, because I understand I have to have a listing in order to get my UPC converted.
Well, you were talking about, yes. So you have to get, it's the other way around. You have to get your UPC or your G10 exemption before you can create the listing. Okay.
Well, I have the UPC. I mean, I bought the G10, I guess, the GS1 numbers, and then I think they made it a UPC by tacking on a couple of other numbers at the end.
Right.
But I don't know of a way to change that to the ASIN or whatever number needs to be on the box, the FBA number on the box.
So here's what happens. When you make the listing, there's going to be a place where the first page of your create a listing process, there's going to be a place where it asks for the UPC or the EAN, if I'm correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're going to put, obviously, if you have a G10 exemption, you don't put anything there. But if you already have a UPC or an EAN that you bought, that's where you put that. And then once you have the listing created, then you are able to download, because once you create the listing, Amazon creates the ASIN for you. Okay, so those things kind of go hand in hand. It's like the next thing after you put in your UPC is that you get an ASIN from Amazon. Once the listing is created, then you have the ability to download the PDF file for the FN SKU. Okay, the FN SKU is it's a different barcode. The ASIN is strictly Amazon's reference number, right? But the actual barcode, so what happens is Amazon takes your UPC and it puts it through its little thing and spits out an FN SKU. Okay, and that is what we would call the barcode. Okay, and then at that point you have two options. You can either download that PDF and print up those labels to be individually attached or affixed to each unit, not to be confused with shipping labels that you have to print up that go on each carton, right? And then the other option, or there's two other options. The other option is you can send that PDF to your supplier if they agree to print up those labels and affix them to your individual units. And then the other option is that if you are doing a custom printed box, like if you're really going for it, then you can actually have the FN SKU put right into the design of your box so that it's printed on the right place on every box.
Yeah, that's what I'm needing, that particular thing.
So do you have graphic design experience?
No, I've hired all that out.
Oh, there it is.
And all I have to do is get the number, the code, and send it to our designer. And
So it sounds like what you need to do is make your listing.
yeah,
Right?
scary.
Awesome. I know it is kind of scary. Any other? Hopefully, Julia, did that help you a little bit?
Yeah, thank you very much.
And keep asking if you got any other questions about that. Anybody else with any other challenges, wins they want to share? I know you got a win, Evelyn. What's your win of the week, of last week?
Oh boy. What is my win? I've been making some sales on the replenishments. So
Awesome.
we'll talk about that later though.
Yay, that's great.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. I'll share a couple things. Oh, I see Joe and Gina. What's up? Guys, I don't have the chat window open, so you can just talk. Hey, Joe and Gina, what's up?
You're muted.
Hi, guys.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm filling out my form here for my seller's account, and it's asking if I need to renew it. I'm just doing it for the first time. So to renew it, do I sign up for 5 years, or do I just sign up for the first year?
Renew what?
My fictitious name for my brand.
Are you talking about a website domain, like a .com? What do you like? I'm just trying to figure out.
No, I have a
An LLC?
no, I have a what's it called?
Is it for DBA?
LLC.
For doing business?
No, it's a brand name. I have a brand name, and they told me that I have to file it in the newspaper for a couple of weeks, and I have to pay a fee for that. Are you in Florida as well, Desi?
No, I'm in California, but
Okay.
California requires us to do that as well.
Yeah.
So
So-
yes, I had to. We had to fill out a whole form,
Right.
list out all the different names you think you would be using,
Exactly.
and pay the fee.
Did you
so
just
that
pay for the first year, or do you? It's asking me if I want to renew for 5 years. I mean, I'm just signing up for the first
Can I
time.
ask you a couple questions? One is this: are we talking about the Secretary of State, the same entity that is
No,
authorizing your LLC? So when you say they, I want to know absolutely who they are.
Sunbiz. It's Sunbiz. It's part of. It's a fictitious name, Department of Sunbiz. I don't know if you have that there, but this is what we have.
No. So I'm trying
Sorry.
to, no, this is fantastic. So somebody is asking you if you want to renew your business name. Is this the same?
No, my business name is different from my brand name.
Understood.
So I'm getting my brand name. I put it out to Amazon, and I got a letter back in the mail saying Florida Fictitious Name Publishing, and they want me to pay a publishing fee in the newspaper for X amount of so long of a time. Well, I'm filling this form out with everything, and it's asking me if I want to renew for 5 years. I'm just doing it for the first time. So I'm trying to figure out, should I renew it for 5 years, or should I just do it for the first time? I don't know.
Gina, do you have a document you can hold up to the
Yes.
screen and do a la 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 while you're doing it so that the
What? Can you see it?
Florida Fictitious Name Publishing. Okay. Oops, sorry. I'll be quiet. You talk.
I can't read it backwards. But anyway, they want my information. They want my address and DBA and blah, 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 blah. And I'm filling all that in. And it said, would you like to renew your fictitious name for an additional 5 years? And they'll do it for like $10 off. But, And then they said, they'll remind me when the time is up so that I don't miss the expiration date.
Can you show me the
And-
bottom? Can you show me the bottom of that paper while you keep talking?
Gina, I would just renew it for the 5 years because I wouldn't want to do this again after a year or whatever. I'm
Well, I
looking
don't
at mine. I'm looking at mine for California,
Yeah.
and it automatically says it will expire after 5 years from date of which it's filed. That's what it says on my form.
Well, my form says that mine's only good until December 31st, then I've got to file again. I'm like, are you kidding me? I get 3
Oh
months?
my gosh.
Guys,
So,
What?
yeah, well,
I want to
Yeah.
make sure that this isn't a scam. That's all I'm really trying to do is to
Not a
figure out
scam.
who is asking you for money. Is it the state of Florida that is asking you for this money?
well, it's a company, but it's under sunbiz.org, Division of Corporations.
Have you
so
really paid
it's
them
obviously
anything?
gonna-
Have you paid this company anything?
No, not yet.
I didn't
No,
get
but it's a
anything like
private,
that.
it's a private company, but when I came in, they reverted me back to sunbiz.org, Division of Corporations. So that's where I would pay my taxes anyway. So I guess they're legitimate. And my accountant told me to just pay them. He's just pay them. He said, because when you try and do it on your own, it's very complex and it's probably going to be more expensive. And you might do it wrong.
I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, can you tell us, is this because you were trying to register your brand on Amazon and Amazon triggered this thing from your state? Do they do that in every state?
No, I don't think Amazon did it. I think my state did it. When Amazon was doing this, they noticed, the state must have noticed that I have a fictitious name now. I have a brand name. And they said, you have a brand name. You need to, before you do anything with that, you have to put it in the newspaper for so many days or weeks or whatever, and file it with the Sunbiz and Division of Corporations with the state of Florida, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is the next thing I have to do. So anyway, I'm doing that. I thought before I go to sleep tonight, this is going to be done. I mean, I'm going to get this thing out. So here I am. And now it's saying another
Same
5
thing for
years.
California. Yeah, the LLC, that kind of triggered it to me too, but they said it was kind of like a step by, kind of like I was just checking the boxes. And California said, check with your county to see if that's something that they require, which is a DBA, doing business as fictitious business, and they do. So I had to go through the whole thing, go on the Los Angeles Registrar site. So they outline the instructions of what we have to do there. So I filled out my thing.
Exactly.
And you have to have it. They said, well, since you could do it by yourself, do it on your own, but there are other companies in the area locally that can do it for you. So that's what I did. So I paid the extra fee, right? Unfortunately, they were only here. They could only do it for the people here in LA. Which is okay. So they said, if you have other businesses or business names that you're going to be possibly doing business as in the future, they said, just list it all out if you can. So I did. I just kind of threw it out there. So I did my name, True Bliss Creative, and different other names. I think four other names, so that and filled it all out. I had to get it notarized, and then sent them all the paperwork. This particular company who did it for me, and they said, okay, in about a month or so, you'll hear from us once we get your, and when you hear from us, that means it's been posted, it's been in the newspapers or whatever, and then their agent goes to the county to get it signed, with their seal and everything for Los Angeles County, and then they send it back to me. So that is now officially my records that I have met the fictitious business name statement.
Wow, Florida and California, man, unbelievable.
Yeah, tell me, right?
Well, we have our good points, but
Of course. No, I just had never heard of that, and I really just want to be clear. I was really just trying to make sure, Gina, that because honestly, when you apply for any kind of anything, right, we all get this barrage of letters, and often something looks very official, and at the bottom it'll say like, this is an offer or something like that. I just wanted to make sure. I just looked up Sunbiz, I just looked up Sunbiz, and it like you're saying, it is the legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the Taxation and Revenue Department for Florida. So yeah, do
Yeah.
what they say.
But the company is not part of Sunbiz. It's just being referred by Sunbiz. It's a private.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So
it's
they're
a
gonna
company that'll do it for you.
They'll charge you a fee plus your
Company that's making money off people who do it. So
annual fee.
I immediately took it to my accountant and said, excuse me?
Oh no, I was just going to ask, what do they charge per year to have your business name?
Well, this company is saying they want $100, but when I read on, it said it's only good till the end of the first year. And then, which is like 3 months. So then I'm going to have to pay again for another 5 years. They make you pay for the first year, and then after that's for 5 years. And I could wait until January and do it if I want to and save myself the money and just go for the year. But then I've got the end of that year I have to pay. But they're asking me right now that I can, do I want to renew it right now? And it'll be $190 and I'll just pay it now and it'll be good for 5.5 years. Or do I just want to do that? And then when the time runs out, they'll let me know and I've got to pay it again. So I'm like, I don't know. It seems easier to just pay it now and get it over with. But
yeah, depending on how committed to your brand you are, and I imagine you're committed to your brand, right? So
hey, after all this, are you kidding?
I saw Joe's T-shirt over there, right, Joe? It's just right?
Yeah, I mean, we're in it come hell or high water. We were dragged into this thing from Sophie, and here we are now. So
I know, and you know what? I mean, I got to say that I really appreciate the lifeboat party that we've all been having since then.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know what we do without each other because all these things that keep coming up. You're right. There are a lot of things that do come up and they're fictitious and they're people that just trying to rip you off. So I immediately went to my accountant. He said, "Just pay it. Just pay it." I said, he said, "No, just pay it. It's fine."
Even just that, just the fact that you brought that up and Daisy was able to validate that and say, you know what, certain states have a whole different thing. Obviously, I live in New Mexico. We barely have running water. And so
that's amazing. You don't have to do this. That's awesome.
Well, I guess I'm just saying there's less regulations for certain things. And I'm always surprised to hear that. And obviously even the costs of things, like even just the cost for an LLC here in New Mexico, I think was $50, where I think in California it might have been $400 or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's very, very expensive in some places, but whatever. And I did the branding because I'm really confident that my brand name is unusual and everybody hears it goes, "Oh, that's really cool." And I'm going, "Yeah, that's what happened with my business name and somebody stole it." So I think I'm not going to let it.
Are you guys planning on trademarking that? Are you going to do the IP accelerator?
I'm going to see how it goes, and then I think I am going to trademark it. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing like that out on the internet. I mean, the products are out there, but not exactly what I'm doing. So I don't have all these, you guys talking about all these suppliers. I'm thinking, where do you get one of those people that do all this work for you? I'm doing it all by myself. So, I don't know.
I noticed maybe a week or two ago that you had mentioned you were having some challenges, and then a little while later you said that somebody had helped you out. And so I was really just curious about what those challenges were and if there was anything you could do.
Well, I was having trouble getting into my seller's account, and I was not qualified. And after I filled the information out, they said I was qualified. After they took my fee out for the year. Then they said, "You're on suspension." I said, "I'm not even started yet. How do I get on suspension?" "Well, we don't have enough information." So then I had to go back and get all this information to verify that I was who I was, like, FPL bills and all kinds of things that they wanted that would not be licenses, things. Thank God I had a business going before this. So all that stuff. And then I was finally saying, "Well, I don't think I have enough information. Let me just start over." And at that point, they came back and said, "Oh, congratulations, you're in." I'm going.
So now, I'm glad to hear that. So you got your account verified, Joe and Gina. So that's a huge.
Yeah. It's going. But now I just want to get moving with it. And this is what I'm hitting. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know. Is it okay to go ahead and do it for 5 years or what? But I think it probably is.
I think you should rock and roll on it. If it's something that you have to do for the state of Florida, and you are all in on Amazon land, and you can afford it. Then
buy the long road. Pay for the long road. Thank you. Julia, I think Julia wants to say something.
Yeah, you mentioned something about a DVIP accelerator or something. What is that?
IP accelerator, which we did a session on a previous platform, and I'd be willing to do another session on intellectual property as IP and trademarks and things like that. And honestly, somebody had posted a question about how do you know if your name is patented, but really what they're asking is how do you know if it's trademarked? And so you do that by a test search, the trademark electronic search system.
Yeah.
We can do a whole other thing on that. Therese, I see your face, and your question a couple weeks ago was on insurance. And I'm thinking we could do a quickie on insurance if anybody's interested. So let me pull up my my little screen share, and we can do a quickie on insurance.
I was just curious if anybody had put that into place yet. I mean, I have had a conversation with the I think it's Well Insurance.
Oh yeah,
and,
good.
Yeah, and he had given me a prospectus or a quote like back in May when I started, or not May, but in I think it was early July when all this kind of started. And then when my product went into production, I reached out and said I thought that I was ready to, instate it, because I think from what I understand that, I mean, if somebody gets injured at the factory, they could turn around and come back and, go for you, like, right? If they're making your product.
I think it's even beyond, when you're talking about product liability insurance, you're more concerned on the consumer end. You're not worried about the worker in the factory. That business is going to cover that person for workman's comp or injury.
Okay.
We as
probably another 28 days before I kick it in then is what.
Well, nice. Well, let's talk real quick about this. I'll move through this. This was a cool little thing that we did. Maybe I'll go full screen. Give me a second here. There we go. Let's see. All right. So as Amazon sellers, we sign de facto this Amazon Services Business Solutions Agreement. It's essentially the seller agreement. And Amazon requires us to have insurance for our products if our gross proceeds from transactions exceed the threshold limit for 3 consecutive months. And depending on which country you're in, that threshold limit is a little different. The threshold limit for the US is $10,000 in a month. So if you sell more than $10,000 in a month for 3 consecutive months, hey, easy puppy, then Amazon requires you to have general commercial liability insurance or product liability insurance. That's 100,000 pesos and $10,000 Canadian. You must have commercial general liability insurance, umbrella and or excess liability insurance coverage with limits of not less than, so this is Amazon's minimum insurance requirements. And I guess I should say, like, at this point, like if you're not listed a product yet, right? If you're kind of in this process, if you're just having gotten your seller account verified and you're kind of in that early stage, it's something you want to be thinking about. It's not necessarily something you want to pull the trigger on until you're pretty close. I would say like 2 weeks before your products arrive at the FBA warehouse or something, you might want to pull the trigger on insurance. So it might be a good idea like a month before, and maybe that's kind of what you're talking about, Therese, is, several weeks before, have a conversation with somebody and we can talk about some different companies and things like that. But essentially, there's no one size fits all for liability insurance because all of our products are different and have different liabilities. And when I first spoke with Matt at Well Insurance, I really tried to get like a group deal for all of us, like that would be like, this big discounted group policy that we could all go in on as Amazon sellers and all get big discounts. But essentially, the liability is different if somebody is selling an electronics product versus a cosmetic product versus a food product or whatever. They all have sort of different liabilities. So what the insurance company will ask you to do is send them pictures of your product, tell they want to know what, I'm sure Matt had mentioned to you, Therese, well, what kind of products are you going to sell? And, you know, they're going to essentially calculate your estimated premium cost based on the kinds of products that you want to sell. This is Amazon's minimum coverage. 1 million per occurrence, 1 million in aggregate, and 1 million in the general aggregate. Okay, and so let's say 1 million in the aggregate for products and completed operations, right? So that's 1 million for the actual product, and then 1 million in the general aggregate. So you almost kind of work backwards. Like the general aggregate is everything. Like that's as much as they will pay out in a year, 1 million in the general aggregate. Such insurance must include product liability, also known as PL, products completed, and this is right out of the Amazon seller agreement.
Wow.
Completed operations, bodily injury, personal injury, broad, and I think it says broad coverage from property damage and broad form contractual coverage. Then you can satisfy those limits using any combination of commercial, general, and this is like, you got to know this term. That's what it is what you want. So when you talk to any kind of insurance person, you want to make sure that you're going for commercial, general liability, and product liability insurance. I would also recommend that if you're going to go ahead with insurance, that you talk to a company that specializes specifically in e-commerce insurance for Amazon sellers. And that's why I found and worked with Matt over at Well Insurance, because their whole thing is like e-commerce, right? And they even offer.
I signed up today, Stuart. I mean, last Friday.
That's amazing. That's awesome. How timely.
And he will send it to Amazon. He will send the copy
Right.
of our insurance directly to Amazon. So that's a big win. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yay. That's awesome. Yes.
Stuart, can I comment on this?
Of course.
It's territorial as well, by the way. You've got to be very careful about the territories, everybody. If you expand your sales territories, the insurance sometimes excludes trading in certain territory. You've got to check everything with the broker and the policy, because that often happens. For instance, in Europe, it's not uncommon to exclude the US because of the liability levels. It's very, very common to exclude the US. So if anyone's in Europe, check it out. Don't assume that you're covered. And it's also an insurance contract is what they describe as utmost good faith, which means you have to disclose absolutely everything. So make sure you provided all the details. Otherwise, they can renege on the policy and say they weren't properly disclosed and they just won't pay out. So just take care setting it up. Make sure you've told them everything about what you're doing. You've got to make sure the territories are covered. And then don't forget your shipping as well, because if you're doing free on board, it's your problem the moment it hits the port. That ship sinks or the container gets washed overboard. Right. Your goods have gone. So that's another piece of insurance. But you can sometimes reduce the cost by asking for an excess. And in the UK, what we call an excess is the amount that you cover before the insurance company pays out. Now that can make a big, big difference.
Here that's called a deductible now.
Deductible, okay. So if you're prepared to carry a reasonable deductible, that knocks down the premium a massive amount, because these guys work on probability. They just get a probability table out. They say, how likely is it for this event to occur in this market with an electronics product or one of Stuart's products? They've got comparative tables and they just say, there's the price, Stuart. The probability is 1 in 100 or whatever it is. If you're prepared to take the first chunk of that risk, that knocks the probability way down and the price is cheaper.
I want to say our deductible for our policy is $500, and and our monthly premium, our annual premium is like $650.
Yeah.
Or,
28.
so it should be for like for our purposes for a beginner product, unless you're selling rat poison or something like that. Rat poison for kids like bubblegum flavor rat poison. Then you should be in that like 400 to 600.
Yeah, and
400 to 700.
presumably it also depends on volume usually as well. If you're suddenly selling a lot, of course. Absolutely. You need to tell them that if things change during the year, make sure you've disclosed it, because
you are so spot on, dude. You're so spot on. So
something changes, they're going to say, wait a minute, you told us you were selling 10 products a month. It's now 1,000.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
liability is
So
different.
they want to know, when they do their discovery, not only do they want to know what products you're selling, but they want to know what volume you're talking about, because obviously as a numbers game, the more you sell, the greater the risk of somebody
Exactly.
choking
It's all
up
risk,
their
folks.
thing or what. It's
Yeah.
all risk management. We could do a whole
That's
thing
it.
on risk management. I have to say that my experience in risk management and insurance comes from 30 years as a commercial outfitter, and not from 8 months as an e-commerce seller, right? So I have a little bit different understanding of this, and yet once you understand the jargon and the specifics, obviously aggregate, per occurrence, that the lingo is all the same once you understand how to talk insurance, and then you just have to apply it to whatever industry you're in.
Yeah, always ask for the exclusions, because the policies are often very arcane and difficult to read. You have to get a list of all the exclusions, because you get what you pay for. You can go to a company and say, hey, this is good value, it's really cheap, the other one's twice as much, but you sometimes find the cover is not the same cover.
Oh, absolutely, man.
And
So
you
when
go to the cheaper ones, they don't pay when there's a problem. They walk away, or they try and walk away, whereas the decent ones tend to be more amenable and back you up when something goes badly wrong. So you get what you pay for.
this is also the difference between like calling Allstate and asking them to, cover your e-commerce business versus finding somebody that deals specifically in e-commerce. Because guess what? I will put money on it, and somebody prove me wrong. Call any insurance company and ask them if they will cover you for your e-commerce business. Of course they will. Absolutely. We'll write your policy or whatever.
$1,000 a year.
But unless they understand the intricacies of the industry. And one of the things I really did like about Well Insurance is that they also offered, and check this, Adrian, they offered a suspension insurance. So
Right.
that and it's an additional fee, substantial, but and there are 2 tiers with that, but if your Amazon account gets suspended, especially if you've got 3 or 4 products that you're selling, or more, or whatever, or one, whatever it is, right? If your account gets suspended for any reason, these guys will pay up to like $1,000 a day for your operating expenses and things like that. So
I mean, if you think about it, Stuart, that's equating to what you would get for the llama business if you got business continuity interruption. So what they've done there is said, if there's an interruption in your business, just like your shop gets closed or burnt down, and you pay, those are expensive policies. You've got to work out what position
that can add another several $1,000s a year.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you've got a big business and there's a lot of money on the line, it's worth it. When you're small, you've got to assess the risk you're running, and otherwise the premium's going to be, pretty staggering. But what you said about the cover,
if you're making 10, 20, 30, 50 grand a month or whatever,
exactly, then it matters,
that's debilitating. So
yeah, if you've got a lot riding on it, you've ordered hundreds of thousands of dollars of product or whatever, or a lot of money, then you don't want to get a business interruption. Then you've got to weigh up the premium versus what you'll lose and whether it's worth it.
That's where it's a gamble. That's why insurance.
That's where it's a gamble. It's a hard call sometimes.
On all fronts. The other thing I'll reiterate that you were saying is that, and this is one of the things that Matt had told me as well, was that it's all cool to sort of set the wheels in motion, but as your business grows, just like you're saying, it's important to have at least an annual sort of reevaluation of your policy. You tell your agent or your company, hey, we're selling this much. We started out with these 2 or 3 products, but now we've got a dozen different products, and so they reevaluate your whole thing and make sure you're covered. And it's not a matter of like, ooh, can I save a couple bucks here? Because if you're going to try and save a couple bucks by not, upping your policy, then God forbid something happens. Somebody, then you're right. They're not going to cover you. And I think
tell them everything. Tell them everything and tell them more, because if it's on the record, and make sure it's in writing. Don't just have a casual chat with a broker on the phone. This is something, if the chips are down, something goes wrong, you've got to be able to prove that you fully disclose, you gave them all the details, so that they'll have to honor the policy if it's a reputable company.
That a good insurance company will educate you about your liability and educate you in terms of how to minimize and manage and mitigate all of your risks, right? Because obviously it's in their best interest. And so, when we first started out as an outfitting company, we worked with a company out of Salt Lake called Worldwide Outfitters and Guides. And they essentially every year sent me like 150-page risk management thing that, you know, and if you follow all that stuff to the letter, and incident reports and accident reports, whatever, if somebody twists an ankle on the trail or whatever it is, you know, you get a witness statement, all these different things. And if you do things the way that they tell you, then they will absolutely go to bat for you. You want to be the model client. So that,
well, that's a good point, Stuart. And that raises in my mind, it's all very well being on Amazon where there's an agreement that I guess they understand. But if you're going on any platforms on your own website, then the sort of things insurers are going to say, hang on, have you got proper terms and conditions and indemnities in this thing? Where are they? Because if you don't have a written terms and conditions and something goes wrong and there's no limit on the liability, that's the sort of thing insurers won't like. So they'll generally want to see your terms and conditions, or if you don't disclose you haven't got any, that could be a problem. It could be a policy condition that you have proper written terms and conditions, for example. So just check everything and make sure you've got everything in place, as Stuart says. And really, Stuart, what you said now and what you said a few minutes ago is so true. This has to be real cover. People sometimes think, hey, this is great. I've got the piece of paper. Now I can get on Amazon. Great. This is actually for you. It's not for Amazon. If something does go wrong, this is your last port of call. You know, product liability can be huge. I mean, the claims have been ridiculous for stupid things.
This is also where fortifying our corporate veils really comes into play too. And all these things work together. And so if you have an LLC, right, it's better to be a 2-person LLC than a 1-person LLC. And you really need to, like, you know, separate your expenses and make sure that you don't commingle your expenses and all these things, so that the court, we talked about this on Wednesday night on your call, so that the courts have no other recourse or no other choice but to see your business as separate from you. Anyway, I'm going to keep rolling on this. So here's what you were talking about, Evelyn, is that you have to name Amazon as an additional insured on your policy. And that's what you're saying, that you know, a good insurance company will send that document. And essentially all it says is it puts Amazon on your insurance policy under the exact, you know, words that they say here. So Amazon Inc. and its affiliates are additional insured as their interest may appear. And then it tells you, you know, where to send it to and all that. But
can I make a quick comment on that, Stuart? The problem with that, which I've seen before, is they then come within your aggregate. So if you've got an aggregate policy of $1 million, Amazon's going to take a bite out of it and your cover will be reduced accordingly. So bear that in mind when you calculate the cover you actually want, because they are going to share the aggregate level and take a chunk of your insurance for themselves to cover them, because you're adding them into your policy. So watch out for that.
That makes total sense, man. That makes total sense. All right, let's see, what else do I got here? Is that it? Oh, yeah, I think that's it on the insurance. And so I'm going to go back and stop sharing for a quick second, and we can talk about that. Yeah, again, this is something that I really want to be clear. Like, if you're just starting out, I don't want to overwhelm anybody and you know, say, oh, Stuart said that we have to have this insurance. You don't have to have it until you're selling 3 consecutive months of $10,000 each in the US. But insurance is not necessarily retroactive. So once you sell your first product on Amazon, like, when do you want to have your insurance in place? Before you start selling products on Amazon or after, right? And realize that everything that you sell after your coverage is bound is fine, but anything that you sell before that is a liability, right? So you might as well, if you're going to go ahead and do this. And again, if we're all in on the e-commerce thing, you know, I think at first maybe there was a bit of a wake-up call when we realized that you know, this wasn't going to be an hour a day, you know, and you know, skip through the marigolds or whatever. Maybe at some point, right? That's what this will turn into. But I think
wait. Now I just have to say, Sophie said it was going to be like a 2-hour a day thing. I'm just saying. So I'm just saying it's only supposed to be 2 hours a day. Just thought I'd say that.
And it's true. It's true.
Stuart, it's a good point though, because, you know, again, if you're really going to do this seriously and you want to be an entrepreneur, there is risk. I mean, there are so many stories in the US. The lady that went through the McDonald's drive-in, put the disposable coffee cup between her legs and drove off and was severely burnt,
Yes.
I think she got $75,000 for
You
that on
guys-
the basis that
so-
the cup that they supplied wasn't adequate.
That happened here
And-
in New Mexico. We call that the Albuquerque defense or whatever.
Yeah, so
That
you know,
happened right here.
there are people who will not take any responsibility for what they've done, and they will immediately go and try and get someone to sue you. And don't forget the difference between the UK and the US largely is in the US, it's no win, no fee. So they'll take the case on just to see if they can get some damages. Then the lawyer gets a chunk of the damages.
Right.
So there's a big incentive to take on cases they might win. So just be aware that, you know, there are things to save on. Insurance probably isn't one of them.
No, you're absolutely right. And I also want to say that there, you know, as an avid do-it-yourselfer, I will do almost anything, right? But when it comes to legal stuff, you know, leave it to the lawyers. When it comes to, you know, insurance, leave it to those people. When it comes to intellectual property, right? You want a trademark or a patent attorney that's going to do that stuff for you. Can you do it yourself? Can you save shit tons of money? Yeah. Is there a high probability that you might miss something or mess something up and totally void all your work? Absolutely, right? So yeah, there are certain things that you should pay for, and that's one of them. What's up, Evelyn?
It was $3 million, not 75,000.
3 was it? I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 million. There you go for one coffee cup.
And you know what? And that woman got shamed and trashed all over the internet for a long, long time. And after all the facts of the case came out, it actually turned out that the temperature of the water was above boiling, or was, you know, above what is considered, not above boiling, but above what is considered to be the standard temperature for that. And the lids that McDonald's had used for that particular batch of coffee, it was like the wrong lid or something. And so it actually didn't. And she got like 3rd-degree burns like between her legs.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. 79 years old too. You gotta think
Yeah.
about that.
I mean,
But yeah, it was a bad choice to put it between her legs, but also the company itself had the wrong coffee cup.
yeah, exactly. But you
Boiling
can see
coffee.
how many arguments can arise. And the other thing is, by the way, if it's something your supplier's done, you're still in the front line. You're the one that sold it to the customer. And then it's all very well saying, I'm going to go after my Chinese supplier for damages, but you've got to run
Good luck with
a
that.
recovery case
Good
against
luck.
a Chinese manufacturer who you may never be able to get hold of. And even if you get a judgment in America, may not be able to enforce that judgment in China. So just be aware.
This goes into supplier agreements too, Adrian, and maybe we
Yeah.
can do that one time on your session. 'Cause
We'll do it, definitely. We'll do it. We were going to do some legal sessions, and you know,
because
it's
one of the things that I've come across, or at least several in that process, is if you're dealing with Chinese suppliers, you know, it's all well and good to come up with a supplier agreement that's in English that has a jurisdiction clause. Bless you. You know, jurisdiction clause that says, you know, this has to be heard in the state of California or in the county of this or that. Good luck. That's never going to happen, right? And so the only real way to deal with that, from what I understand, if you're dealing with overseas suppliers, especially in China, and the other thing I remember reading about that was that people that often send supplier agreements, the suppliers will be like, yeah, I'll sign your thing, but almost in this dismissive, condescending, or patronizing way, because they know that it doesn't really mean anything. The only way it'll mean something to those folks is if it's written in Chinese, or in Mandarin, I should say, and that the jurisdiction clause calls for a hearing in their local court, and then you have to appear. So again, good luck with that.
well, that's the problem. Yeah, but again, Stuart, from what we were just talking about on insurance, at least if you have a proper agreement, and you know, not just some really back of a cigarette packet kind of thing, then if there is an insurance claim, the insurers are going to look at that sort of thing to see what you did, whether you properly set the order up. Again, you know, in their insurance clauses, they may be able to wriggle out saying, hey, you didn't have proper paperwork, you had no proper agreement. When you had this made, it was your fault.
Let me ask you
know,
this, Adrian. How do you feel about, because I know you are a lawyer, right? I think that was.
I haven't practiced for a long time, but yeah,
Well,
I've
then
dealt
how
with this
would
stuff
you-
forever,
how would
but I don't practice anymore.
got it. But I'm just asking, how would you feel about consulting with those of us in the group on, drafting some supplier agreements?
I'm definitely going to do some sessions. I think if we do like we do one of our life and business tools or one of these e-com sessions, we do a session just trying to go through the issues, because I think if everyone's aware of the issues, then at least they know when there might be help required or some interpretation. The first base is sort of understanding what goes into these things and why, raise everyone's awareness of what can happen, and then inevitably every agreement is different. As you said, it depends on the product, it depends on the supplier, the country is different, so the clauses will be different per country.
I'll add that there are several firms that specifically deal with e-commerce and international trade, specifically with China. I know that there's one law firm in New York, and there's even one up in Denver that they have people that have lived in China or born in China and things like that, and they do specific agreements that are ironclad. Again, you'd have to show up and deal with it. So really, it sounds like the answer to all that is, make sure you never ever have to try and enforce any clause in a supplier agreement, right? And that's where Guanxi and developing good relationships with your suppliers come in.
Absolutely right, Stuart. You're absolutely right.
We have a question from Sandy.
I see that. Hold on. So why does Amazon require us to have our own insurance versus using theirs?
Because they can.
Because
someone else pays for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are responsible for your product. Amazon does not want to pay legal fees. Let's say you sell some piece of crap that kills a bunch of people. They don't want to be responsible for it or whatever. So they require, and that's why we're saying, is they require at a certain point us to have our own.
They will have a massive insurance policy, you can be sure, but they've gone to their insurer and said, we require the following from all of our suppliers, and therefore we want to be insured for the excess risk on top of that if anything goes wrong.
And guess who else is going to sue you? Guess who else is going to sue you if you've got shoddy products and somebody not only is going to sue you, guess what? They're going to sue Amazon. And so who's going to come back after you? Bezos.
Oh my God, Bezos.
I think that what most people still have not realized is that Amazon is a serious business. This is not $100 membership to have a network marketing business. There's thousands and thousands of dollars that each one of us are investing in, and we gotta take it seriously from point A to Z, period. Still with the sticker shock, I know.
I guess that's what I was kind of saying, is that at a certain point, and I remember even months ago talking about this, and a lot of people on the after calls and things like that were saying things like, oh, well, I just paid for this whole course thing. Now I got to buy this. Now I got to pay for this. Now I got to, yeah. And even if it wasn't sort of sold to us, in that sense, once you start embarking on, and once you get that wake up call, like, oh, this is a real business, and there's a lot of other things that are involved in this. And at a certain point, I remember even talking about trademarks and IP attorneys and insurance, and even going back to what you were talking about, Gina, biting the bullet and spending a couple $100 on securing your trade name in the state that you operate in. At a certain point, and this is where acting as if, really, this is where a lot of the mindset stuff, in my opinion, comes into play. And whenever I have sort of questions like that, I try to ask myself, what would a successful Amazon seller do? Right? What would a real business person do? And that should be the answer every time.
Yeah,
you're right, Stuart.
If we were to buy a franchise, depending on the business, you guys start looking at 6 figures.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh my God, we were watching something last night, and maybe it was Undercover Boss. If any of you guys ever watched that, we kind of like that show.
I do.
And and a lot of them are like these chains that sell franchises. And one of the ones that we watched, the guy said, or the boss, offered to waive the franchise fee for this employee, right? And Leah looked it up and said, oh, the franchise fee is like $60,000. but that's just the franchise fee. And just like you're saying, Evelyn, if you want to
Buy
have
all the
like a real, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like a trampoline. It was like a trampoline jump house or whatever. And by the time you're done, it's like $1 million investment, 1.5 or something like that. So yeah, it's amazing. So any business we're going to embark on, and I kind of feel like, and I've talked with Mark about this on and off Zoom and things like that. But at a certain point, I think we were talking about this today, Mark. You know, we can do the $100 here and let's, you know, this and that. But like if I'm trying to like figure out how the heck am I going to make 10 grand a month, right? Then it's going to involve some real money at play. And when, I mean, obviously when we're talking about testing our products and getting small quantities and things like that, but unless you're really committed and you're like, all right, and at a certain point, like we're at a point where we've run out of, you know, most of our investment capital for products, right? And, you know, I know you guys are all whatever, how are we going to do this? How am I going to buy 1,000 of this or 500 of that or whatever it is and still pay my bills, right? So I think that's the challenge. And that's where, if we're serious about what we're doing, you know, then already we're talking about, well, maybe, you know, smart business people don't spend their own money on their businesses, right? And so, you know, what's the next step? A business loan, you know, 0% credit cards or however, you know, and that I think is a great, you know, talking about credit and how we can finance our business without spending, you know, the last rent money for next month.
Yeah, Stuart, I mean, again, I think everyone's got to say, relate to the world we know. If you in the old days were going to set up a restaurant, which Gina will understand, or a shop, what would you have had to do minimum to set up a shop or a restaurant? You know, customer trips over the doorstep, gets food poisoning, buys a bad product from your shop. It's all the same. Nothing's changed. It's just that you're doing it in a virtual environment where you don't have a shop front. But all the issues you would have confronted about insurance, liability, occupiers liability, staff liability, it's all still there. It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
And
no, I think in some ways we're getting off easy. I mean, really,
yeah.
You know, when I look at, you know, our total investment, and let's say excluding product investment, right? Because that's, you know, a whole other equation. But in terms of getting your business set up, and even if you used Prime Corp or any of these other places, you know, even that, you know, a few grand or something like that, or whatever they charge. I don't know if anybody, you know, has used them or is continuing to use them. But even that, yeah, again, compared to like, what would it cost to either buy property and build a building, right? A brick and mortar or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're talking big bucks. So, you know, from that standpoint, again, a few grand here or there, it's like we have to start thinking a little bit bigger. And again, I don't want to scare anybody with any of that. And especially if we're only talking about your first products or whatever. But, you know, if you guys remember when we signed up for Sophie's course, that and regardless of the AX10, which is a whole other level of investment, you know, both time and resources. But I remember her saying, you know, do you have $6,000 you can invest? Does anybody remember that? Do you remember that? Right? Who has $6,000?
Oh, that still hurts.
$6,000 to invest. And you know, and if you're, and my first question was, well, does that include your course, Sophie? And the answer, of course, is no, right? And so it's not really, you know, so we all know what we're in for.
Oh God.
And, but that's the thing. And I think, again, the value of what we're doing here is we're supporting each other through those challenging decisions. Because if we were all, imagine sort of, you know, all of those tethers were cut and we were all just sort of floating in the e-commerce world all by ourselves, right? How many people, including myself, might be like, fuck that, you know, it's not happening or whatever. And so, you know, to me, and I keep giving John props, right? Because without the mindset component, I don't think I would have the drive to do this kind of thing, because is this my life's purpose? You know, and this is the interesting thing. I want to do a little session on, you know, finding your purpose and finding your why and all that kind of stuff. Because if we can figure out a way to incorporate this into our purpose, or repurpose ourselves to, be working with e-commerce, then it can be fulfilling and mindful, and a way to reach people in a positive way. But if we're just coming at this from this, oh, I invested this money in this thing and I got to get it back, and it's just this like business sort of, money in, money back kind of thing, I don't know how many of us would still be at it. So I appreciate these sessions. I know I didn't have a whole lot. Well, I guess, we repurposed the insurance thing that we did, and we got a good session out of it. But there's so many things that we can do. And again, rather than, and I think I was saying this earlier, rather than sort of me coming up with a list of things that I want to talk about, and maybe, we'll do that sometimes, but I would much rather be working on issues that at least some of us are working on at any given time, so that we can all help each other move forward. And I really do appreciate Gina and Daisy's input in the beginning about this.
Oh, so do I.
Trade meeting. So thank you for that. That educated me for sure.
Stuart, can I just add something here? Years ago, Joe and I were involved in a legal insurance company. And I think I brought it up before. If it's something that anybody might be more about, I think Adrian will agree. You may have heard of it, Adrian, called Legal Shield.
Oh yeah, totally.
They're really big.
I haven't heard of it in Europe, but you mean it was for legal expenses insurance, you mean?
It's actually illegal insurance. Yeah, it covers you for all types of things. And they have a business plan for people who are in business. I had gotten it for my home and my family and for personal reasons, but now they have it for businesses. And believe me, it is well worth it.
I agree.
If you want to get a representative to come up one day and talk to us about it, I think it's really, especially against the conversations we've had. It covers pretty much anybody, at least in the United States. I don't know. I know there are other countries that are covered, but I don't know what they are now because I've been out of it for a little while, like you have. So I don't really know the details. But
there are some in Europe. There are some in the UK and some in Europe. Again, you've just got to check the range of claims they'll cover. And then it's not cheap, but it can be well worthwhile. You can have personal insurance liability cover or business insurance liability cover, and it's well worth it.
Would you like to touch base with me? Maybe we can. I'm sorry?
We have it in Canada, Legal Shield, but it's more legal stuff than actual insurance. So they give you legal representation if you need it, and give you advice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Free will
and stuff.
Yeah. It's insurance.
It's not insurance, it's legal insurance.
Yeah, exactly. For legal claims, if you get a claim against you, you can call the policy and they pay the law firm. Obviously not on an unlimited basis. There are limits on the policy, but they will pay some of your fees. They'll help you with advice.
Yeah.
Because obviously if somebody sues you, your insurance coverage is sort of one aspect of a case. But if you were sued, you would still need an attorney to represent you.
And you don't have to look for one because they're there. They're automatically there regardless of where you live and what you do.
I just wanted to jump in on top of that. I have Legal Shield and I'm looking into trademarking, and I was trying to get hold of my representative today, but what I read is that Legal Shield will walk you through the trademark process. Has anybody else done that?
Yes.
Have you done that, Gina?
No, I haven't done it, but like I said, having sold it way back then, they do. They take you step by step by step through everything, and they'll be behind you for everything, and they'll represent you, and they'll defend you, and you always have somebody at your back. I mean, you just never feel like you're going through this alone, no matter what your problems are. And I'm seriously thinking of getting back into it, so I thought, like, if it's something you want to bring on, maybe we should have somebody out here to explain everything to all of us at one time. And, for those of us that are like, Julia, you probably would be a big help, and maybe with, no, but I mean, with your experiences.
Let me mention that we did a pretty intensive session on trademarks and intellectual property, and that there is something called Amazon IP Accelerator. And so I like the idea of LegalZoom for all kinds of things, but I think if you're going to go with a trademark for your e-commerce, for your Amazon products, that you're going to be better off going through Amazon IP Accelerator. And what this does is that it puts you in touch with a an affiliated intellectual property firm that works specifically with Amazon at a bargain basement rate, let's say. And so they have, and I'll have to go back and look, but I think it was like maybe $750 for the first one plus a filing fee. And then if you do multiple, trademarks, multiple marks per, or multiple categories. It's a multiple category mark. So if you do 3 or 4 different categories, then you kind of still get a discounted price. And I'll have to pull that out next week. Maybe we'll do a little thing on that. But what's really cool is that then you're actually in touch,
Stuart,
with the attorney. Hold on just a sec. That will then walk you through that whole process. And then when you do that, what's really cool is that while your trademark is pending, Amazon does a fast track to approve your brand registry. Whereas if you just go through any old trademark attorney, then Amazon will not fast track your brand registry. And so the deal is that if you do this Amazon IP accelerator, I read within 2 weeks you get brand registered, even if it takes 18 months to get your trademark approved. So I think it's something that we can talk about. I'm sorry, who else was just saying something?
Stuart, I have your notes because that was such a huge deal for me, the whole trademark, that I couldn't wrap my mind around. But so I have your notes from that session. And you said that they'll do a trademark search for $500 for the basic search, and then at $1,800 for the complete search. And then it depends on your class. You can have a multiple class application. So like one class is, so it'd be $600 and then $275 for the filing fee, and then it would be at $875. So, and then several class application was $1,300, and 3 class was $1,725. 4 class was $2,150.
You are awesome. Kim, you are so cool. Thank you for writing all that down.
I have so many freaking notes. I'm telling you, it's crazy. My mind is like, ah!
You know, I have like 500 notebooks full of stuff.
But I know when I'm ready to get to that point, I'll have what I need.
I love it. That's great. All right, guys. So hopefully that session was informative and helpful for folks. As always, I'm grateful that you guys are showing up here and that we can work on these issues together. And I think as we all advance and move forward in our e-commerce businesses, that we're all just going to become, you know, encyclopedic about all these things, and that we'll be able to not only help each other out, but those that come after, right? And I think that's, you know, right now, you know, we're laying the foundation for our group with the, you know, the John Lavinia Success Mastermind. But as that opens up to other people, there's going to be other people that come along and things like that. So I thank you, and I'm looking forward to just leveling up with everybody. So that concludes our e-commerce work group for this evening, and I'm going to sign off here, and then we have John Lavinia's book club. We're going to read we're going to discuss the 3rd chapter of Think and Grow Rich, and that's on faith, and I'm looking forward to it, and that's in like another half hour. So get some cookies and milk or a little snack or some tea or whatever it is, and thanks you guys, and we'll see you at book club.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you guys.